wins, so to speak.
I've heard there's a tool coming out that will tell you coverage of your code. I think Integral have some thing in their cloud FusionReactor thing that may be going to do that in the future. I'm pretty sure David Talisall mentioned something to that effect.
I think that tied in with CommandBox as well. I saw something at CFComp a couple of years ago, or last year, I can't remember. Age that was getting to me. Time, it's just elastic.
I mean, that time is elastic. That would be really handy with this kind of legacy code where, only so much of the code is run, maybe 50% of the code actually is used.
Yeah. I mean, Lucy at one point, or Rilo, I think at one point, had some code measurement stuff like that. I was trying to build an interface to it because this actually generates a lot of data, because it's not just usage, it's like heat maps about, which code is running slow and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's a lot of data to deal with. When you think that you have a 10-year-old application that has 300,000 lines of code, for example. I can't remember how many lines of code this application has, but once you have that, it's like, great, okay, I know which parts are not more lightly used, but they're still being used. So it's like it's okay, it's a good thing, but it's not the be all and end all. I do love it for real applications because then you can see where your test coverage is getting at rather than usage.
Yeah, and that's important because if you haven't tested some code, chances are that's where the remaining bugs are lurking.
Yeah, exactly. And on my day-to-day consultancy stuff, sometimes the problem is finding out, okay, so there's this CFM file that doesn't get used, right? What's calling it and how would it be called? Some systems are very dynamic and they're dynamic based on data, for example. Like I've seen people do that they have a database of all the pages that are actually being called and includes that comes from a data, for example, right? So I know people are screaming at me, but you can just do find and do a multi-file find. Yeah, it doesn't always happen like that. So yeah, you might find that file that's not called once, but it might get called. But yeah, if you can get that kind of information, it's really, really, really good.
So tell us what you used for your source control and continuous integration. Which software did you end up picking and why?
So we had Jenkins already running there, and they were using Gitlab, an old version of Gitlab, which they were just using it like a Git repository. So we had Bitbucket and Gitlab, where we've now moved to, because the problem with Jenkins is that you cannot script your deployment process, right? So this is a thing that you'd go like, here's my job and here's all the things that it does, but you don't have a nice scriptable way to say that these are the pipelines, this is what happens. Now, in the newer versions of GitLab, you have that. You can say, this is my pipeline across different environments. And I can say, for example, if you are using version control, you can say all of the develop branch stuff goes straight to the development servers, and you can have a whole environment that clients can test, for example. And that goes to, let's say, all the way to staging, so clients can, so you can actually test kind of like real data against your code or something like that, right? Or a mirror of the real data. Bitbucket as well now has pipelines, but because we were like, it's all being kept in-house in that, and the other teams were using GitLab already because they started from scratch, so they could choose whatever they want. But now we've moved to GitLab. So that's the current GitLab. Jenkins has got a few of the tasks, I think, which is running data migration pipelines.
So basically, the way you have GitLab set up, you commit some files as having changed, and it automatically gets sent off to staging, and then when it passes the appropriate tests,
it kind of actually.